What's up, everybody? On today's show, two of the biggest offensive coordinator names in the SEC. Could they be moving on? We'll give you the latest on Bill O'Brien and Todd Monken. Also, some very early Heisman odds for next season. And we'll get you caught up on the latest movement in the transfer portal. Locked on SEC starts right now.
Are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at lockedonsec.com. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start over at Alabama, as they've already lost one big-name coordinator this offseason. It's just a week ago, Pete Golding left Alabama as their defensive coordinator to go be the DC over at Ole Miss. And now Alabama's offensive coordinator, rumblings that he could be on the way out. Bill O'Brien has worked for both Bill Belichick and Nick Saban during his career. For the past 2 years, he has been Saban's OC at Alabama. And from 07 to 2011, he worked with the New England Patriots. According to NBC Sports, O'Brien has emerged as the top candidate to take over back as Patriots offensive coordinator. The Tom Curran report says the primary target is former Patriots OC, former Penn State and Texans head coach, Bill O'Brien. There is unanimity on all sides that O'Brien's the best person for the job, while there are other candidates with merit, the familiarity there, and with ownership, and of course, Mac Jones. May be a tie there for O'Brien. So we will see if Bill O'Brien ends up going back to New England. There have been rumblings of that. And, look, if ask an Alabama fan, sometimes these things run their course. A lot of Alabama fans felt like time had run its course on Bill O'Brien in Alabama, Pete Golding in Alabama, and time for coordinator change on both sides for the Crimson Tide. So we will see. Nothing official as of this recording, but we expect could be going down. Bill O'Brien leaving Alabama to go be the OC at the New England Patriots. Under O'Brien this past year, Alabama finished with the nation's number 4 scoring offense, tied with Georgia at 41 points per game. They also finished 11th in yards per game, averaging 477 per contest. Those 2 losses Alabama had this year weren't really on the offense. It was on the defense. And Pete Golding, of course, as we said, left for the Ole Miss job and is already out on the recruiting trail. Saw some pictures out there. Pete Golding wearing Ole Miss gear, taking pictures with recruits. So see if Alabama is going to be eyeing to target both of those guys. There's already some reports that Glenn Schumann getting a lot of interest from Alabama to replace Pete Golding. We'll see who the hot OC names are out there to replace Bill O'Brien at Alabama if and when he leaves. Some internet rumors thrown out there. Cliff Kingsbury, perhaps. So we'll see. The other big coordinator in the SEC, Todd Monken, been leading this Georgia offense to back-to-back national championships, took former walk-on quarterback Stetson Bennett to new heights, made him a superstar. And Monken's been with Kirby at Georgia since 2020. Prior to that, he was the OC for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Cleveland Browns. And some people wondering, could he make a jump back to the NFL ranks? According to ESPN insider Jeremy Fowler, Monken is drawing a lot of interest from NFL teams to potentially become an offensive coordinator again next season. Monken, of course, has to replace Stetson Bennett this offseason. And we'll see if it'll be Carson Beck or Brock Vandagriff who's going to win that starting quarterback job. But you got to think the money's pretty good at Georgia, and they're taking care of him pretty well. But could the money be more? And, could he have that want to jump back to the NFL? We will see. Again, just a report from Jeremy Fowler at ESPN that drawing a lot of interest doesn't mean Monken is absolutely going to leave for that. But, hey, man, you already won 2 national championships at college. Is there anything more you can do at that level? Why not go back to the NFL and go try to win a Super Bowl there and maybe try to be a head coach in the NFL? We'll see. But, again, that's the latest on those 2 coaches, 2 of the biggest offense coordinator names in the SEC. FanDuel's got some Heisman Trophy odds out for next season. 4 SEC players making the list. Of course, quarterbacks heavy on this list. And it's kind of interesting. There's some guys very established who we assume are going to be the starters next year. And some guys, they're venturing a guess. Again, this is kind of to spur you to go make a bet and jump on some of these odds. But they've got Ty Simpson at Alabama, and they got Brock Vandagriff at Georgia. Neither of those guys are currently the starting quarterback. Again, battles still to be played out throughout the spring and the summer. They got Joe Milton at Tennessee. That one makes sense. Obviously, Hendon Hooker put up some big numbers this past year. Looks like Milton will do the same next year at Tennessee. Jaden Daniels, one of the few, incumbent returning starters in the SEC at quarterback next year. He is on this list. But it will be interesting to see if you look at some of the other names on here. Of course, Bo Nix, very much in the mix, coming back for another year over at Oregon. But Caleb Williams, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner at USC, he's the odds-on favorite to possibly repeat. Drake May at North Carolina behind him. Michael Penix Jr. returning for another season at Washington. He comes in at plus 1,200. Jordan Travis coming back for another season at Florida State. He is plus 1,200. And then you want to get some long shots. Brock Vandagriff at plus 1,600. Quinn Ewers at Texas plus 1,600. And Cade Klubnik over at Clemson. He's plus 1,800. Ty Simpson, if you want to get the longer odds, he's plus 2,500. Jaden Daniels and Joe Milton both plus 2,000. So there you have it. It's never too early to look ahead at Heisman odds for next season, but that's what FanDuel's got up there right now. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll hit on the latest news and rumblings going on around the transfer portal. That's coming your way in just a second. But first, this episode of Locked On SEC is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat and you don't want all the fat and the calories, you got to try Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and a lot of people have that goal where they want to eat a little bit healthier. You got to go try Built. Built Bars are healthy and actually tasty. They are covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. Not sure how they do it, but they taste amazing. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein packed in there. And now you don't have to wait around. You can always go to their website at built.com to order your Built Bars, but you can also get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You pick up a 4-bar box of the cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Or, of course, like we said, head to built.com and order Built Bar today. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and man, we got some movement happening in the transfer portal. Guys leaving the SEC, guys coming to the SEC, so let's jump into it and get you caught up with all the movement happening around the conference. And we'll start over at Georgia, as after 3 seasons with the Bulldogs, wide receiver Dominic Blaylock entering the transfer portal. He's played in 29 games for the Bulldogs. Had just 15 catches this season for 227 yards, scored a touchdown against Vanderbilt. And in his career, Georgia has over 540 receiving yards with 6 touchdowns. A little bit of a surprise. His freshman year was his best season, where he had over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns that year. And just has struggled to find that consistency, where Georgia's heavily leaned on the tight ends, obviously, this year. And the running backs use the receivers from time to time. But Dominic Blaylock entering the transfer portal, and he will go elsewhere. So we'll see where he ends up. A couple other Florida or Georgia Bulldogs, linebacker MJ Sherman, a former 4-star linebacker in the class of 2020. He is in the portal. and reportedly is heading to Nebraska. So MJ Sherman on his way to Nebraska. And then tight end Brett Seether, he is in the portal, and reports say he will head over to Georgia Tech, where he will reunite with Buster Faulkner, the new OC over there. So best of luck to those guys. Movement over at Florida as Damian George, former three-star offensive lineman from Houston who had committed to Alabama as part of their 2019 class. He is heading to the Florida Gators. He announced on Monday afternoon he was committing to the Gators, and Coach Billy Napier will have 2 years of eligibility remaining. Appeared in 2 games for Alabama this past year against Utah State and Texas. Played 12 games, made 3 starts in 2021. Florida running back Naquan Wright, he is on the move. He will continue his career at South Florida. Spent the last 4 seasons with the Gators, entered the transfer portal, former 4-star recruit. In his Florida Gator career, he rushed for almost 700 yards and 3 touchdowns. Most productive year was 2021, and he had entered the portal, and now he is on his way to South Florida. So he's staying in the state of Florida. And another guy, former Florida linebacker David Reese, he is heading out west. He will play his 6 year of eligibility over at Cal. So David Reese on his way to Cal. Over at LSU, Walker Howard, their 3rd-string quarterback, entered the transfer portal and wrote a message out to fans on Monday, making it official. Said, as a kid, I always dreamed of playing at LSU, never imagined being anywhere else. However, when things happen in life, we have to adjust and keep moving forward. With that being said, made the decision to leave LSU to look for the best spot for me to grow. There's been rumblings. Maybe he could go to Ole Miss. Maybe he could go to Florida. Maybe he could go to TCU. Report was he paid a little visit to Ole Miss, went very well. So we will see where Walker Howard ends up. Just didn't want to sit there 3rd string behind Garrett Nussmeier and Jaden Daniels for another season. LSU linebacker Colby Fields, he is on the move again. He had originally transferred in from South Carolina a year ago, and now he is transferring out to Louisiana Tech. So he'll stay in Louisiana, but go from LSU over to Louisiana Tech. Over at Ole Miss, Kendrick Breedlove, he has entered the transfer portal. He originally put his name in the portal, then withdrew it, and over the weekend once again put his name back into the portal and tweeted out on Monday that he's heading to Colorado to go play for Deion Sanders. So Kendrick Breedlove officially leaving Ole Miss this time, we think. But Ole Miss did make a big pickup on Monday. Picked up an offensive lineman from UAB, Quincy McGee, committed to transfer to Ole Miss, who's a 3-star player, was rated the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the country, according to 24/7 Sports when he came out, and see if he starts there on the offensive line for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss next year. Over at Texas A&M, Blake Smith, 3-star tight end, he is on his way out of Texas A&M. And he has entered the transfer portal, announced he is transferring to Oklahoma. So Blake Smith going from the Aggies to Oklahoma. Over at Arkansas, offensive lineman Marcus Henderson, he entered the transfer portal. He is going to head back home to his hometown of Memphis and play for the Memphis Tigers. But Arkansas did make a pickup on Monday through the portal. He picked up a wide receiver from Bowling Green, Tyrone Broden, 6'7", 210 pounds, caught 32 passes for over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns this past year. So another weapon added to the arsenal for KJ Jefferson. And there you have it. That is the latest news going on around the transfer portal. Coming up in the last segment, we'll touch very briefly on the SEC basketball games happening tonight. That's next. Going along here, Locked On SEC, and wanted to dive back into it to preview some of the games happening tonight. We got some big ones happening in the SEC, but first wanted to bring you an update on Alabama basketball player Darius Miles, who was arrested over the weekend with a allegation of capital murder, and his attorney released a statement, said at this time, Darius Miles and his family are heartbroken over the death of Jamia Harris. While Darius has been accused of being involved with this tragedy, he maintains his innocence and looks forward to his day in court. We'll see Tuscaloosa Police Captain Jack Kennedy said in a news conference Sunday night. At this time, it appears the only motive was a minor altercation that these individuals had with the victim as they were out on the strip. Did not have a previous relationship, he said, and unfortunate situation there for Darius Miles and Alabama. Of course, he's been dismissed from the team already. Let's get into it. Some games happening tonight in the SEC. First up, it is Ole Miss taking on South Carolina in Columbia. Ole Miss is actually a road favorite, which is surprising. They are 0-5 in the conference. Both teams are 8-9. South Carolina is 1-3. Of course, they had that big win over Kentucky last week, but Ole Miss needs to break through. They got to find a way to get a conference win here at 0-5. Kermit's crew not doing so well this year, so we'll see if Ole Miss can pull off that one. That is on the SEC Network. Over on ESPN2, it'll be number 9 Tennessee on the road heading to the hump to take on Mississippi State. State has been off to a rough start as well. Started 12-1 non-con, and they were just 1-4 in the SEC. Meanwhile, Tennessee, they're 4-1. They are rolling along, 14-3 overall, top 10 team in the country. They are a 6.5-point favorite heading on the road to take on the Bulldogs. Then later tonight on the SEC Network, it is number 4 Alabama heading on the road to Memorial Gymnasium to take on Vanderbilt. Vandy, not a bad team, 9-8 on the season, 2-2 in the conference, but Alabama, a perfect 5-0 in the SEC, 15-2 overall, top 5 team in the country. Bama is a 9-point road favorite at Vanderbilt. And then later on, 8 o'clock on ESPN, it is Georgia at Kentucky. Georgia, surprising 13-4, 3-1 in the conference. A little bit better than people thought they would be this year. So they are heading to Rupp Arena where things were looking bleak for Kentucky, and then they went and got themselves a big road win over Tennessee on Saturday. Let's see if they can keep that momentum going. Kentucky 11-6 on the year, 2-3 in SEC play. So if they can beat Georgia here, it'll get them back to 500 in the conference. Kentucky favored by 10. Pretty big number there. Some big numbers all across the conference in these games tonight. But that's your SEC slate happening tonight in SEC hoops. And then again, more teams in action. LSU and Auburn will play on Wednesday, among others. But feel so inclined, go ahead and make some picks there. I feel good about Tennessee and Alabama winning on the road. I think Kentucky gets the win against Georgia at home, and I think Ole Miss finally breaks through and finds a way to get a road victory in the SEC. And there you have it. That is the latest going on all around the conference. Again, a lot of stuff to discuss. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Make sure you go check out our brand new podcast on the network, the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. They got everything you need to know about college basketball all in one place. You can hear from some big name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. It is the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been a brief edition of Locked On SEC, but wanted to get you guys caught up with all the stuff going on. We'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll also do a little recruiting talk later in the week with our buddy John Garcia Jr. You don't want to miss that. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On SEC wherever you get your podcast, and check out the video version over on YouTube as well. I will talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.